G'day guys, how you going? Today I want to talk to you about how to use a gold pan like an old-timer. Australia truly is the lucky country. We have literally thousands of goldfields to play in. So it should come as no surprise that gold prospecting, especially gold panning, is becoming one of Australia's fastest growing pastimes. Panning for gold in a creek or a river is a fantastic family activity. And it's something that people of all ages can enjoy and learn. And there's nothing quite as exciting as finding your very own gold like this. One of the biggest questions by many new chums is how to use a gold pan. So what I'd like to do today is I'd like to show you guys a technique which I was taught many years ago by a third generation gold miner. His father taught him. It's about as close as you can get to how the old timers panned. Now I'm going to put out a bit of a disclaimer here. I'm not saying that this is the only way to pan. There are many, many ways to pan. So I just want to start by saying this is not the only way to pan. But this is a way that I've learnt to pan, a way that was shown to me by a third generation gold miner. And it's a technique that if you understand the science behind it, is very, very simple. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to give you a quick demonstration of how I pan. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the process again step by step. And I'm going to explain each step as I go. The how and the why. Just got some gravel out of the river. I've already classified it, so I've taken out all the big rocks with a 1/4 inch sieve. So all that we're left with now is just the smaller material. What I've also done is I've placed some gold in this material. And there we have our gold up the top of the pan. I just want to talk a little bit about the science behind gold panning. You would have noticed in the demonstration that absolutely everything was done underwater. And there's a very good reason for that, because this is where the science kicks in. Remember back in school when you were taught about the periodic table and the elements? This is where a thing called specific gravity comes in. On the periodic table, each element is given a weight, and we call that a specific gravity weight. The reason why I did everything underwater is because specific gravity is directly related to the weight of water. Let me give you an example. The specific gravity of gold is 19.3 times heavier than water. The specific gravity of lead is around about 11.3 times heavier than water. So now that we know that the specific gravity of gold is 19.3, it helps us understand how gold can move through other material that's in your pan, and that's why everything is done underwater. So the number one thing that I was taught was that everything must be done underwater because essentially we want specific gravity to do the work for us. And all we have to do is manipulate our technique to make specific gravity do its thing. When you get some dirt out of a creek or a river, before you pan it, a very important thing to do is to classify or stratify the material. In other words, you want to get rid of all the big rocks. I whack it straight through a 1/4 inch sieve, and that pretty well does the trick. So all I'm doing now is I'm just putting the dirt through a 1/4 inch sieve to get all the big rocks out. Just give it a shake. Of course, make sure you're over the pan whilst you're shaking it. And that's all the big rocks out. And now we're just left with some material to pan. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my pan is submerged completely underwater. Not so far that I can't see it, just under the surface so I can see it. And I'm going to move my pan backwards and forwards, short, sharp motions. But I'm going to keep my pan horizontal. I'm not going to tilt my pan at this stage because my goal right now is to get everything to go to the bottom of the pan. So any gold that's in this pan, if it's up the top, will head straight down to the bottom. Why? Because specific gravity is now going to do its thing. So all I'm doing is I'm shaking backwards and forwards, but I'm keeping the pan horizontal. I'm making sure that no dirt goes over the edge of the pan. Because at this stage, all I'm interested in doing is getting the heavy materials, i.e. the gold, to the very bottom of the pan. And I'll just pour the water off slowly. And by now, all the heavy material should be at the bottom of the pan. But just to make sure, I can just repeat that process. Maybe 10 to 15, maybe 20 seconds. And now I'm 100% sure that all the heavy material is now down the bottom of that pan. Okay, so that's the first step. The second step now is thinking of specific gravity. We want it to do its thing. So we need somewhere for that gold to go and congregate in the bottom of that pan. I'm going to lift the pan up now. And if you have a look at your pan, you'll see that it has a slanted side and it has a flat bottom. I want to draw your attention to this part of the pan here, and I'm going to tilt it. I'm now tilting the pan, and I want you to imagine this section here and this section here creating a V. My job now is to get any gold that's sitting up the back of the pan, walk it down to the V. Any gold that's sitting up on the side of the pan, walk it down to the V. And this is how I do it. Place the pan in the water and I slightly tilt it forward, making sure none of the material actually goes over the edge of the pan. All I'm doing now is, like the first step, short, sharp, backward, forward motions. Anything from the front of the pan is now walking back to the V. Anything from the back of the pan is now walking down to the bottom of the V. I do that again for 10, 15, maybe 20 seconds. Get the material right up to the edge of the pan. And now, if my technique was correct, all the gold, or the heavy material, should be sitting right there at the bottom of the V. So anything that's now on top of the pan is lighter material. And this now leads us into step 3, which I call the ebb. Now the ebb takes a little bit of practice, but essentially what I'm doing is I'm using the water to take away the lighter material. And the way I do that is I just slightly submerge the pan, push forward, let the water in, lift the pan on the forward motion, and the water drains out, taking the lighter material away. And you can see that the lighter material is now being taken out by the water. So now I go back to my V, and you'll notice that I've got virtually no sideways movement. That's because I'm not worried about centering the gold at this stage. All I'm worried about is getting the gold down to the bottom of that V. Back to the V, there it is. Now ebb, taking away the lighter material. Back to the V. Now ebb, and basically it's just a repetition of the second and third steps. The V to the ebb, to the V to the ebb, until you reduce the amount of dirt in your pan. Now point to note, as the amount of dirt in your pan reduces, your movements need to become shorter, sharper and more deliberate. And another point to note is when you're ebbing, you don't really want the water to go too much further past the back edge of the dirt in your pan. And when it's reducing, you need the ebbing motion to be fairly controlled. Back to the V. Now I'm going to introduce a little sideways shimmer just to walk the material up to the edge but not over. Stopping there, tilt the pan a little bit more, back to the ebb, back to the V. Remember, going back to the V is a sure way of getting that gold to sit right in the bottom of the pan. So when you do your ebb, you don't need to worry about taking the gold away, because the gold should be right down the bottom, and the only material being taken away by the ebb is the lighter material. And you'll notice you can see some gold in the corner of the pan there, and that's why my ebbing is now very deliberate. Back to the V. And essentially what you want to do is you want to get it down to around about a tablespoon of dirt, a little bit less even if you can. The less dirt in the pan, a little bit of a sideways shimmer now just to walk it right up to the edge of the pan. Very gently. And that's the end of stage 3. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go on to the 4th stage, which I call the twirl or the twist. So now we're going to move on to the twirl or the twist. To do that, I'm just going to go back to the V, pour a little bit of water out. This is the only time you'll ever see me lift the pan out of the water. I've got enough water in there to manipulate the dirt. There's not much, it's only about a tablespoon of dirt. And short, sharp motions, still tilting the pan forward so I get all the heavies into the bottom of that V. And now I'm going to twist the pan or twirl it. Just enough so the lighter material is swept away from the top of the pan, but the heavy material stays in place. There's the gold. You can also just push the gold back up to the top of the pan. Just be really gentle. And there we have it. Our gold is sitting up at the very top of the pan, which is where we want it. So there you go, guys. That's how you pan like an old timer, just as it was shown to me by a 3rd generation gold miner. Like everything, practice makes perfect, and what better way to spend your weekend with the family down at your local creek or river, practicing how to use a gold pan like an old timer. Thanks for watching.